Bill Ebert here today on the show, and this man, very successful, published author, you know, a mathematician. Uh, he's built different websites for different companies. Been in the MLM industry, and just helping a lot of different companies achieve success and helping a lot of people achieve success. Um, awesome sales guy. I mean, there's so many things I could tell you about him. How many people he's helped, what he's everything he's done is, I mean, he's been successful. Because he's always never given up, and he's always had that talent. He's always a student, of the industry, of life in general, just everything overall. So, with no further ado, Mr. Bill Ebert, how are you doing today?
Doing very, very well. Excited to be on the Jonathan Puga show.
Awesome, awesome. So, I just wanted to, ask you, some questions. Let me ask you this first, Bill. How did you get started in the home business industry?
Well, it's a long story, but I've always been an entrepreneurial mindset. I've always not liked the system of, what we call job enslavement. Is having someone tell you what time you got to get up, having someone tell you what time you can take your break and what time you can leave, and having that ceiling in the industry. Every job has this pay ceiling, and you're stuck. I mean, you either do that and be happy with it, which I'm perfectly happy with those people that are happy with that, if that's their lifestyle, but I never could. I from very, very young, I was always looking at ways to make money, because I was a lazy kid. That was my primary motivation. Was I was just wanting to look for the shortcut all the time. So home-based business for me initially was from a negative motivation. I was a lazy kid and I was looking for the way out. So I got involved in every opportunity from the time I was 16, 17 years old, and just looked at everything. I was in Amway, I was in Melaleuca, I was everything. I did every single home-based business that I could possibly think of. So that's how I get started. Most of them, for the first 10 or maybe even 15 years, I was a total failure. I was part of that mass of people that never made a dime. I kept trying, but couldn't figure it out.
Wow. What made you succeed finally in home-based business after failing so many times?
Well, I think the first thing was perseverance. I think having the perseverance and the experience to be able to tell the difference between a real opportunity and a fake one, being all those years of just following every opportunity to finally discern the difference between what's a comp plan that works for the average guy and one that what doesn't. That's just all hype, smoke, and mirrors. And, plugging away at what we now call the $1,000,000 question, or focusing on the things that work, because a lot of people sell ideas, old school techniques and methods that just don't work. A lot of people are doing them, so people have an appearance that they work. And even the guys who are making some pretty good money in the industry are promoting systems and tools that don't work. And I think it was just years of perseverance, and me being, of course, a kind of guy that wanted to be motivated by doing as little work as possible to get the most result. I wanted something that worked for my people, because I realized that residual income and building a business, initially I wasn't motivated as I am today in truly helping other people for the right reason. I was into helping other people because that made me money. I started off like most young guys. I was money motivated. I was shortcut motivated, and I just looked at helping other people as a self-benefit. If I could get 5 people working for me, I get 5 times the benefit. So as I was showing these people tools and it wasn't working for them, I think when we finally figured out what really worked and teach people only those things and not get them distracted with all the stuff, excuse me, like autoresponders is one of those big things. I'm not going to get on my soapbox on the things that don't work, but one of those things in most systems, like an autoresponder for the technology side of things, an autoresponder for most companies don't work, because the moment that people start using it, they get blacklisted in the industry. And so people are promoting, well, we got this really cool autoresponder and it's turnkey and you just put in your letters and it automatically goes out. Well, if the system or the industry or the company that you're doing business with starts to be effective, it immediately gets blacklisted and it stops being effective. So they're actually selling you something that worked months or years ago on something that doesn't work anymore. And I think just experience, knowing the difference between what's hype and what is truly effective, started to make a turn. And then once it started to work, just like Robert Hollis' story, once it started to work, I became one of those guys in an industry where I could not only make money immediately. I used to always go into a company and say, I'll be making money in 21 days. I'll be making $1,000 a week in 21 days once I picked a good comp plan. And I would prove to the company and to the people around me that it worked, because once you get a good company and you get a good solid comp plan, then all you got to do is the stuff. Like in our case, just ask the $1,000,000 questions. Go through our ninja training, go through our 21-day training. If you'll just do the stuff, it can't help but work for you.
Let me ask you this, this is not a question that I wrote. This is coming off of just me thinking here. Who influenced you in business? Who was a mentor that you looked up to that really took your hand and like you've done for me, and said, "Look, I'm going to help you. I'm going to show you the way."
Well, there were a lot of people, because you personally know me. I read a lot. I realized that the way to find success was through information, that information was power. And I went from a real negative, selfish, childlike, young guy mindset of being selfish and driven for money. And I read a book called Think and Grow Rich. And in it, what was really interesting is that in it, he mentioned many, many times that his motivation was the Bible. And so whenever I find somebody who's motivated like Robert Hollis, I want to know what his mentor taught him. I always want to know immediately where it went to. So I started reading the scriptures and realized that for me, it became a book full of motivation. It became a book full of principles and character traits and motivations to cause you to be core, to be focused on success at your core, not success just in the result, but becoming a successful person. And then these things, all these benefits of being a person of success will come your way. And I think the scriptures was my primary motivator. And I read people from that point on, I read people who that was their motivation. The Zig Ziglars of the world, and Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey, a beautiful series on how to become successful in the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. And I started reading people that align themselves philosophically with my thought of core growth and helping other people for the right reasons. So that was that's the short answer. I had so many people. I've read hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, of self-help books and motivations, and talked to almost everybody in the industry, asked a lot of questions. A lot of people have been influential in my life, but I think that's my core right there.
Because I know you're an expert on online marketing. You built multiple websites for different companies. How did you first get started online?
Well, online for me was out of necessity. I was at the time, I think 1990s, mid 90s. I owned one of the largest, I owned the largest sign company in the state of Oklahoma, and we did signs and banners and printing, and we had a pretty big company. And the internet was starting to suddenly come out, and people were doing websites. And I realized I could make more money building a website than I could make a sign. So out of necessity, I started doing websites. I also became a programmer because I couldn't find programmers that understood where I wanted to go. Technologically, they couldn't understand. I would spend 6 weeks with a team of programmers, and they still couldn't get it. They didn't understand the math. They didn't understand the psychology behind how we were going to train people. So I just went to the library. I just picked up some books on programming and became a programmer and started doing it out of necessity.
Wow. That's amazing, Bill. You've been labeled a mathematician. Where did that come from, and how did that get started?
Well, I've always been inclined toward mathematics. Even when I was a little kid, I had an IQ of 182.
Wow.
And what I tell people is that I think all of us are born geniuses, and the education system strip our genius from us. I think because I was always looking for another way, that I was inclined toward education, but not toward school. I didn't like school. I didn't like the things they were teaching us. So I spent all my time in reading encyclopedias and studying math and doing things, because I was a really sickly kid. When I was little, I had asthma so bad I couldn't play any sports at all. I couldn't go outside. I was allergic to everything, and so I was forced to be at home. And I think that cave that I lived in really, strengthened my brain. I don't think I'm anything special. I don't think that my IQ is anything special or unique. I truly believe in all of these years of educating other people that everybody can do and understand the things that I do and understand. I think it's a psychology or a mindset that almost everyone is born, unless they're truly brain damaged or handicapped, they are truly born with genius. They really can understand. But the more we incline ourselves to television and the Jerry Springer lifestyle, it strips away our abilities. It strips away our brain cells. So I just focus a lot on it. I just love physics. I love mathematics. I love science. I just the things that you focus on, you become good at.
Go through the whole thing. I think it's EQ, SQ, IQ, and you go through that whole thing that you were just talking about. Everyone's a genius inside, and then how going through the educational system, how everything is brought up, how people are brought up to think, it kind of destroys it. But you can always get that back. You give people hope to know that they can get that genius back. So that's awesome. There's a question I asked Robert too, and I definitely can't wait to hear your answer. If you had to start all over again tomorrow, would you do the same things, or would you change your strategy up, just change things up?
I could go back even 10 years and do it over again. I think I would have done two things different. Number one is I would have spent more time with leadership. Instead of being such a wild-haired entrepreneur, instead of being that guy who always had to be the deal, that was the number one thing. I really thought I was the smartest, I was the sharpest tack in the box. And I was a pretty smart kid, but I wasn't humble enough to really listen and follow and surround myself with leadership. I surrounded myself with books, but I didn't follow a leader. I think that's the number one thing I would have done different, is to and the second thing was similar to that, is stick with a company. Find a good one. And a lot of times I would find something I didn't like about it, or I didn't like the way it was going, and I would get mad and think that I was Mr. Superstar because I was making so much money, and I would leave mad and burn all my bridges because I had that New Jersey aggressive personality. I would just blow up and blow out. And I think I would have be a lot more successful if I would have held on to my relationships better.
Right, and that's what I've learned from you and Robert. The relationship is key. It doesn't matter what company or whatever. You never know. You always want to give, and the more you'll receive. So that's awesome. Let me ask you this: what advice would you give to a new internet marketer, somebody that's new to the industry? Because there's a lot of people out there, fake mentors. They go take a picture next to a Ferrari, but they're not even making any money. And then they go online and make a website and steer people in the wrong ways. Can you talk a little bit about what advice you would give, and what do you have to say about the people that are scam artists online?
Well, really just a couple things, and some of it's just common sense. If it looks too good to be true, and you look and it looks like the character of the person is just about the money, and you don't hear it, you don't hear that heart of longevity and relationships and building, but that's all you're looking for, then you could hook up with a team like that. But if you want longevity, if you really want a solid company and business, get with people who don't just use the words, but look at what Robert says is documentation beats conversation. Do a little bit of investigation. It doesn't take long, especially on the internet. Find out what these guys say about other people. See how they talk about their competition. See what kind of relationships they have. Do a little bit of research and find out how they've left their last few companies. If you're going to get involved in a company, be involved with people of character, because you could build and invest all of your time and energy in something, and it go away because the character of the company or the people you're hanging out with fails you. So it's really important. Character and real relationships is really important. In our industry, I think the biggest problem, especially with young entrepreneurial guys like me, who get started is they don't know what they don't know, and they're not really sure how to tell the difference. You know,
Right.
you look at three opportunities. How can you really tell? And through my years of experience, we can tell. I think it's really important. I think the best thing for a person to do, they're ready to make this a lifestyle. They want to become a pro. Go into Unlimited Profits back office for free and look at all the training. Listen to the training that we do about character and about what you look for in a company. Learn and make decisions based on common sense. Make decisions based on not how much money you're going to make in a short term, but how much you're going to learn and how much you're going to influence over a lifetime.
That's right. That's right. And that leads me into my next question. Me and you coming from a sales background as well. Knocking on doors. I used to work for Kirby. I know you being a sales guy, selling cables, selling all kinds of stuff, and being very successful at that. What's the difference between sales and actual marketing like we do now?
Well, I think it's hard to get into the full training. You know, we do a lot of that training in our back office. Um, but the difference, I think, is um, probably about branding and about building relationships. That marketing, at its core, if it's strong and it's real, you're building an idea, you're building relationships. Nike doesn't go out and want to just get customers. They want to build a dream. They want to build an idea. They want to build relationships with customers and with companies and with organizations. Marketing is a lot slower. You know, when we were out selling door to door, we could make some crazy money. I mean, you know, you just keep knocking on enough doors and you go home with some crazy money. But you know, tomorrow morning you got to go do all that over again. Sales is a hamster wheel. Sales is you just got to get back on the wheel again. Marketing is relationships. Marketing is you're building something that's going to take care of you. Marketing should, you know, if you're still thinking like a salesperson, marketers puts out a lot of information so that they can make a sale. But from our perspective, marketing is building relationships and building long-term collaboration with teams and other companies and people so that you build a brand and you build a dream that ties to their dreams, and now you have friends for life.
Awesome. What would be your most valuable asset in your online business? What would you say?
I think the number one thing, and I try to look for and help as many people as I can with this, is hunger for knowledge. You know, teachability. In our turnkey, turn on the television, get what you want mindset, that is so turned off. We have people that are voting for a president, and I don't care what side you're voting for. Most people are voting for a president because of a soundbite, or because someone, or because your crowd or your clan thinks that you should. We're making decisions based on almost no information or misinformation at best. And I think the number one asset that I have is my hunger for information, for the truth. That even the things that I know aren't fully developed yet. They're always being refined, that I'm always learning, that I'm always listening, that I'm always trying to find what's the next cutting edge thing. And for some people, especially if you've been inoculated with false information from the school system, your desire for learning has been turned off. Most people, by the time they're 7, 8, 9 years old, they don't want to learn anymore. All they want to do is play. And they haven't learned the benefits and the fruit and the joy of this constant grasp for truth. And I think that's probably my greatest asset, that if you took everything away from me right now and I had to go start all over again in a completely different industry, that one character trait would allow me to excel and to become wealthy in whatever industry I chose, even if I didn't know anything about it.
Right. And I knowing you, I know how truthful you are, and that you only talk about facts. You don't talk about hype or anything. You just tell facts. So being so truthful, does that also make people look at you in a way that's controversial a little bit?
Yeah. Controversial, that's a good word. In all the arenas of life, I actually have to stay fairly conservative in my in my expression. Until I build a relationship with somebody and they know my heart, know where I'm coming from.
Right.
If you were to go out there with all of your opinions with a complete stranger, right or wrong, people are offended by that.
Right.
So definitely controversial.
That's why I love you so much. All right. So, what are the main mistakes you see newbie marketers making out there?
Well, um, like I said, being part of a mentor, being part of a group of people that are being mentored with truly success is the number one thing. They get distracted. They go out and they try all these. If you go on a sales page, it has all these bells and whistles and all these testimonials, and all these people are making this money. If you did just a little bit of research and found out that only 2% of the company are making any money, and that 98% of them aren't even making their money back, that there's no real training, that the tools are old, that if you just spend a little bit of time, get away from the hype, get away from the bells and whistles, and just focus on a group or an organization. I'm going to give you an example. I'm not going to name any names. I went to, I'm going to try and say it without saying who they are. I was at a big network marketing convention just not too long ago, and they're promoting that they're making lots and lots of money. I won't even tell you the number because you might be able to figure out who they are. They're making lots and lots of money, and that they put all these people on the stage and they tell you the story of how many people, but they don't tell you the facts. They don't tell you how many people actually paid to get those few people on stage. How much money. If they explain the compensation plan for the mathematics that it really is, almost no one would join. The only thing that they sell on their side is the sizzle and the hype that you can make, and then they show this guy with $100,000. You can make $100,000. They don't show you that the average guy has to make 27 sales. The average guy has to make 27 sales to even make enough money to get his initial deposit in back. And we know that the average person only makes 2.7. So they're already setting people up for failure before the thing even gets started. And this whole entire company making millions and millions and millions of dollars is based on a hype or a story that isn't true. It's not true for 99.9% of the people in the company.
Right. That's exactly right. I've seen the hype. I've seen how that goes. Let's talk about the books that you've written. What actually inspired you to become an author, and what are the different niches of books that you do write, and who are they geared towards helping?
I've published two books online, both ebooks. I've got a third book which is ready, waiting for the final illustration. It's a child's book. I've done a little video in our back office called the Parable of the Windwalkers.
Right.
That's book number 3. And then I've got 7 other books that I'm writing by myself, and one other book that I'm collaborating with Robert Hollis, that we've been talking about and working on for a while. And I think that there's really 2 niches, but they all lead to the same place. Is the number one niche, or the most popular or most common books that I write are about business and about success and about mindset. Helping you find alignment with things that will cause you to be successful. But they lead to what I told you earlier about the biblical principles of true success. What's it going to take for a person to be at their core a true successful human being? So they're basically a funnel. Everything that I write and say has at its core a direction toward perfect self-improvement, toward this place of spiritual growth, or what I refer to as divinity, for you to get to be motivated by whatever you're motivated by, to first listen and to change and to grow, but eventually to move over into spirituality and be at your core a person of success.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. Do you plan on coming out with any new books, or do you have anything you're promoting right now?
Well, we've got 7 books in outline form or in different stages of writing. The next one that I'd like to see published, because it's the closest, is about team building. It's called Supernatural Personnel. and
Okay.
it's about building teams. The one right after that, which is probably the one that I'm most excited about, is the one that I'm doing with Robert Hollis Sr. We're not exactly sure on the title, but it's like science of success,
Wow.
because there's a lot of books that there are a lot of people are promoting out there that are 50 years old,
Right.
and they don't take into account some of the things that we've learned, especially about the psychology and the people of today. That we've learned a lot in the last 50 years about the science of persuasion, about the science of and the psychology of human engagement, and there's so many things we've learned in the last 50 years that these other books don't really take into account. And we love to weave in a little bit more about divinity and about spirituality, instead of from the hyper spiritual new age thinking. Sit around and pray to your crystals, um, which makes people happy, but it's not really that effective. It's a sugar
Right.
pill. Actually get into the true effect that causes a person to be divine, to actually cause a person to be a person of divine character and draw from the right place success.
Let's talk about motivation. What motivates you every day, and what is your one biggest goal? With what you're doing right now with unlimited profits, and just in your wanting to help people succeed.
Motivation is a very deep and wide subject. My everybody that knows me knows that I'm driven. I read a lot. I'm teaching a lot. I work 7 days a week. I'm almost a workaholic, except I enjoy my life so much. The type of work that I do doesn't stress me out, so it's not really work at all. It's more fun. So,
Yeah.
but I am driven, and I don't spend. Someone told me a couple days ago that the Super Bowl was on, and I didn't even know there was a Super Bowl. I had no idea that we. I'm so disconnected from what we call entertainment, and so driven to learn and to succeed and to help other people. And most people don't know where that comes from. Different people. I love to find out when we find successful people what does cause them to be motivated. It's interesting. I have two motivations. One is when I was 25 years old and just married. I was pretty successful in sales, and I was still that young, looking for get rich quick schemes and looking for money and pretty lazy. Looking for the shortest route to success. And I was married, and my wife was pregnant, and we were in our first year, and I ran out of money because I was looking for the get rich quick lazy way out. And I was a salesperson, and I just couldn't find a work. I couldn't find a job, and I wasn't willing to take any job. I wanted to find that easy job, and we ran out of money. The electricity guy showed up at the house while I was out. I had no gas for my car. We didn't have a phone. The only way that I could make phone calls back then was with the payphone across the street, and I didn't even have 25 cents to make a call to get a job. And so the electricity guy's coming to the house, and he's knocking on the door while I'm out trying to find work. I dug through the seats of my car and looked on the street corners, and I found 25 pennies so I could make a phone call. And I go over across the street to the bank, and I pile my pennies on the counter, and I hand it to her, and I said, I need a quarter. And she goes, I'm not going to take that pile of dirty pennies. Go put it. Here's a roll. Go find 50 and give me again, and I'll give you a couple of quarters. And she wouldn't give me a quarter for my 25 pennies. So I know my pregnant wife is over at the house with our electricity just being turned off. I don't have a quarter. I leave the bank. I go sit on the street corner, and it dawned on me. This is all my fault. I'm here because of my lack of diligence. I'm here because I didn't do what I should have done. I didn't do whatever it took to become successful. And I started to cry. And I was desperate. I didn't know what to do. I was willing to go in the streets begging now. And I was so broken. I just couldn't believe what a failure I was. That my pregnant wife was going to have her electricity turned off, and I'm out on my last 25 cents. And I just cried out and said, God, if you get me out of this thing, I will never, ever be here again. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll do any kind of work. I'll do anything it takes to never be here again. And it was that kind of pain. It was the depth of that kind of pain that caused me to turn my way. Now, I don't think everybody needs that. People are motivated by desperation or by inspiration. It would have been nice if I was motivated by inspiration, because that was pretty painful. But because it was desperation, I took it. I was from that point on until today. I have never stopped working. It's been a lot. I just don't quit, and that's one of my two motivators. The motivator number one is to never quit, to always make sure that I do everything I can do to provide for my family and to become successful. My number two motivation is also comes from a place of pain. My dad abandoned his family when I was 2 years old, and I went my whole life without a father. I went my whole life without a mentor. And because I was not the nicest kid in the street and I didn't have the nicest personality, it was hard for me to find anybody who wanted to mentor me, because I was kind of aggressive and kind of mean. So I went my whole life without being a mentor. And because of that, I've desired so much to be a mentor. So my second motivation, it also comes from a place of pain. Not having a father, I want to father everybody. Not having someone teach me the way, because everything I learned, I had to learn the hard way. It was so hard to learn the simple things that I now do to become successful. And now my motivation with Unlimited Profits, the reason that we have free training first and that everything's about free, is no matter how much money we make, or if we ever make any money at all, we don't have to be billionaires. It doesn't matter. Our core is based on mentoring people, about teaching them to become successful. Those are my two primary motivators. Both of them had to come through pain. So I guess it's good. Painful things can turn out to be fruit in your life if you let them. Or you can sit around and feel sorry for yourself. Well, I didn't have a dad and I was poor when I was young. But you can't look at your season of slavery as a motivation for bitterness. Look at it as an opportunity to keep other people free for the rest of your life.
Wow, that's awesome. That is amazing story. Amazing story. And I know, you're very successful now, and you have been and helped a lot of people. And I never really knew that about you. One final question is, as far as your legacy that you want to leave, when someone looks back, after everything is said and done, and they say, "Who is Bill Ebert?" What would you like them to think or know about you?
If I can help other people desire truth above everything, then everything else falls in line. That the pursuit of truth and the stand for truth is far more important than any measure of success you can have, because it's where your eternal reward is tied to. And it's rare, sad to say, it's rare in our society that people even care. They want to take what they believe are truths and proclaim them as truth, but nobody really cares whether it's truth or not. They're not willing to investigate some of their core ideas and motivations as to whether they're true, because it scares them. And I think if I can help people find that in their life, even more than finding wealth in business, if they can find a hunger and an apprehension for truth, then my legacy is fulfilled.
That's awesome. Well, I just want to thank you, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know you're a very busy guy, working with Unlimited Profits, working on your books, helping people, marriage counseling, just helping people in general. I just want to thank you for that. You're one of my mentors and helped me a lot. Awesome. Well, you heard it yourself, guys. Check out Unlimited Profits. Check out Bill Ebert. Just Google him. Go to Facebook. Type his name in. You'll find out more about him. So, thanks again, Bill. I appreciate everything, and you have a blessed day. Look forward to doing another one of these interviews real soon.
Thanks, Jonathan. You're amazing. Keep up the good work. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.